Hey guys, I am Abhay Sharma and you are watching Thinking Penguin. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the baking in animation nodes. Basically, we're going to bake all the values of animation nodes into keyframes. So by default, if you go into the animation node settings, you can see you have a button bake to keyframes. But this bake to keyframe does not support all the nodes and does not support all the attributes. So, and honestly, I haven't used it so much, so I'm not going to talk about that because we are going to talk about is set keyframes node. So this is the node we are going to talk about, set keyframes, because this allows you to bake specific channels, all the transform channels plus custom attributes as well. So let's create a basic scene here first. So here is a cube and I'm going to give some random animation very quickly. So let's do that. So I'm going to create a object transform output, select the object, and I'm going to turn on all the transform channels. Let's create a vector wiggle and a time info node because we're going to animate this, and connect this to evolution, connect this vector output to location, and you can see my cube is now moving into viewport, and the value is 5, amplitude is 5, so 5 grids. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate that, shift D, and I think this one is the input for the evolution, and let's connect this to scaling. So my object is moving randomly plus scaling randomly. Let's animate the rotation. So for that I'm going to use the Euler wiggle. Sorry for the background noise. Okay, so let's connect this to rotation, and I'm gonna set the amplitude to 180 degrees. So this is our basic animation, and let's say I want to bake all the keyframes, all the values, all the transform channels, basically the location, rotation and scaling, into keyframes. So to do that, you can obviously use the bake to keyframes here because transform channels are supported. So if I click bake to keyframes, you can see animation node bakes all the values into keyframes, but it bakes everything. Okay, but let's say I just want to bake the location. How about that? So we can use the set keyframe here, set keyframes node. Okay, so first of all we have to select the object. So I'm going to select this one because this is the same object. You can select it right here, or I'm going to select it from here because you can use it inside a loop as well. All right, so now my object is selected. We have few options. This is a menu. So these are the transform channels and some custom attributes. For adding custom attributes, you have to select it and add it. So right now it's not active. Okay, so what you have to, this is just a selection menu, so you have to select it and add it to the set keyframe node. Okay, now it is added, and if I just click on the enable, if I turn on enable, it will start putting keyframes on every single frame. If I just play the animation, my timeline, you can see set keyframes is putting keyframes on almost every single frame. Yes. Sorry. If I turn off the set, so the set keyframes basically set the keyframe. If I turn it off and let the remove unwanted turn on, and if I play the animation, it will delete all the keyframes. All right, so I'm going to set this to 100. All right. Okay, and start to 0. So 0 to 100. A timeline range is 0 to 100. Okay, so I'm not going to use the remove unwanted. Let's use the set keyframes, and you can see my transform channels is active. It's set the keyframe, and if I scrub the timeline, it just set a keyframe there. So there is a this is just a text field where you specify the name of the channel, name of the value you want to bake into the keyframes, and there is also a value which is basically the index number. If location has more than one values, if it is a let's say a list of elements, list of values, then you have to specify which element you want to bake, and you have to specify the index number of that element. So location is a list of 3 values, okay, x, y, and z, 3 channels, x, y, and z, and each element in a list has an index value. So here x is index 0, y is index 1, and z is index 2. So let's say I want to just bake the y channel, y axis. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to delete all the keyframes. So let's play the timeline. All right, now I want to bake the y channel. So the index number of y channel is 1. So just put 1 here, just enter 1 here and enter, and click the set keyframe and play that, and you can see only the y channel is now being baked. So that's how you specify which specific value you want to bake into. Let's say if you enter any value which has greater than the number of elements in your list. For example, it has 3 values. Okay, if I put 3 here, which is index 3, means the fourth, it is referring to the 4th element, and it's not there, so it's not going to work. If you want all the channels to be active, you just have to enter -1. So -1, and everything will be active. So that's how you bake specific channels. Plus, let's say you have okay, so I'm going to delete this one, and let's remove everything quickly. Enable. Ta-da! Why it's not working? Because I have deleted that channel. Okay, now it should work. All right, now you can add location, rotation, and scaling, all 3 channels at once. So if I delete this one, and let's select this one, and it will add all the 3 channels. If you want only location, or let's say location and rotation, you can add manually. So it will bake the rotation channel, and let's we are basically going to add all the 3 channels. So location, rotation, scaling, and add that, and let's remove the let's uncheck the remove unwanted and select set keyframes, and just play the timeline, and it will set it will basically bake the transform channels into keyframes. Alright, so that is it, and we just have to see one more, that is the custom attribute, and for that I'm going to open a different scene. So let's open that. So this is a scene I have created in my old tutorial, and you can see the render preview here. So it is a plugin that I developed for camera animations, sorry, and you can see the camera is animated here. It's moving on a path, it has randomness, it has random values in its transform channels, plus focal length, and stuff like that. So we're going to basically bake all the keyframes so that we can export this scene for Blender 2.8, because animation node is still not available for Blender 2.8. So we will basically bake all the keyframes, we will bake all the values into keyframes, and then we'll use it inside Blender 2.8. So let's create the set keyframes node, and I'm going to select my camera here, and first I will be adding location. I want rotation. Okay, let's deselect the remove unwanted, and if I select the camera and go into the properties window, these camera tab, you will see what things are animated. So the distance, which is the focus distance, is being animated. The f-stop number is animated, and also the focal length is animated. So we have to bake all these three values as well. So I'm going to select custom, and here you have to type the name of that value. So the easiest way to find the name of the value is just right click on the values field and choose copy data path. And because it's a part of the data, it's part of the data, so we have to put data dot, and then I'm just going to paste Control V, name of the attribute, which is called lens. So here it is called focal length, but basically it is referred as lens in Python. So it is added. Now we're going to add the distance. So right click, copy data path, data dot duf distance. One more for f-stop number. So copy data path, data dot paste aperture cycles dot aperture dot f-stop. That's a big name. All right, now just have to click on the enable, and let's just play the timeline, and everything is perfectly baked. Let's see the transform channels. Okay, so location, rotation, distance, f number, and focal length all are baked. Now I'm just going to save this, save as for 2.8. So I'm going to save as Blender file, and I will disable the render preview. Let's save the scene, and I'm going to select everything in the animation nodes and delete it, because we are going to open this scene into Blender 2.8 and we'll render it with Eevee. Okay, so let's set this to default, and I will go into the animation, the camera view, and let's save the scene, close that, and I'm going to open the Blender 2.8. Okay, so let's open our scene recording. I don't want to load my old UI, so I'm gonna turn off the load UI option here and open that, and this is my scene. If I switch to my camera view, you can see this is my camera view, and I think everything is working. Let's go to the render setting, select the camera, go to the camera tab, and see everything is working. All the keyframes is set, focal length is working, distance is working, number is working. So but I want to use Eevee, so let's go back to the render settings tab and choose the render engine from cycles to Eevee, and let's turn on the rendering button, and you see it's working, except there's only one attribute that is not working, and that is the f-stop. Because if you go into the settings and let's turn on, first of all we have to turn on some values. So let's turn on the ambient occlusion or something like this, depth of field, subsurface scattering because I have used subsurface scattering a little bit, screen space, reflections. All right, so okay, now I don't want to see the white. First of all, let's talk about the DOF, depth of field, and you can see that the f-stop number, this is different in EV. It is called, if I copy the data path, go to the scripting tab and paste somewhere, we can paste here, I can paste it here. You can see it's called GPU DUF.fstop, which is different attribute. So if you use cycles it will work, if you use EV you have to do something else. So for so what I just set this to something like 1.8, and you can see it's working. It's not working exactly, but it is good. And now I'm going to select this box and let's go to the objects tab. Where is the object tab, and in the viewport display as texture, set this to bounce. So I'll just see the object and particles. So this is how it looks. It's real time. F-stop has to be corrected, but it works. Okay, let's do some tweaking. So what I'll do is I will use a different angle for the world. So let's go to the shading tab. Where is shading tab? I'll go to the world and let's add all the vector nodes, mapping nodes, and switch this to render, camera view, and let's change it something like this. Okay, so now if I play, this is how it looks. Let's turn off the overlay, just play it, something like this. Looks good. Let's change the color. So I'm going to shadings tab and object, select the object, and I will use a different color, and for subsurface color I will turn it to something like this. How about that? And alright, let's go to the EV. I think I need some other color. Maybe bluish, something like that. Layout, let's turn on motion blur. Yeah, it's working. We have to correct the depth of field, but unfortunately it's not baked, it's not converted. So let's give something which makes sense. Okay, so 2 looks good. What else? We can give bloom. Let's change the color to something like this and increase the intensity, and definitely use the threshold value to adjust it, and there you go. So this is how you bake keyframes from animation nodes using set keyframe nodes. So I hope you like the tutorial, and give me your feedback, suggestions. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then please subscribe the channel. And okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.